is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The head of Sudan's military council calls for elections within 9 months. South Africa to use drones to speed up blood supply to hospitals. And we update you on the case against Egypt's most wanted terror suspect. Hello everyone, welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program. Zambia begins rationing electricity water levels at the Kariba Dam run low. And in sports, Caster Semenya gets temporary relief after a Swiss court suspends IAAF gender rules. We begin the hour in Sudan, where the country's military leaders have announced plans for elections within the next 9 months. This comes after Monday's violence where armed security forces stormed a protest camp in the capital, Khartoum. Negotiations for the transition to a civilian government have broken down, and the Transitional Military Council says all existing agreements with protest groups have been cancelled.
The Military Council regrets the events and repercussions of the operation to cleanse Nile Street this morning that went beyond the boundaries of planning and prior commitments. To our nation and our honorable revolutionaries, we know very well that there is nothing more costly than our lives. To our honorable citizens and revolutionaries, the Military Council maintains its promise ever since its first statement to hand over power to those wanted by the people. This is why we had the youth protesting with hundreds sacrificed. The Council will not stand in the way of the will of our youth, who deserve to live in a free, democratic nation where everyone comes together to build it and protect it. Our dear citizens, we vow to carry out an investigation regarding the events of today, and we call on the General Prosecution to carry this out. And the Military Council also wishes to invite everyone to lift the value of our nation and create a spirit of forgiveness.
In response to the violence in Khartoum, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is urging restraint and for Sudanese authorities to conduct an independent investigation. The UN chief also called for unimpeded access to deliver essential care at the city-in site and in hospitals where the wounded are being treated.
The Secretary General strongly condemns the violence and reports of the excessive force used by security personnel on civilians that have resulted in the deaths and injury of many. He condemns the use of force to disperse the protesters at the sit-in site, and he is alarmed by reports that security forces have opened fire inside medical facilities. The Secretary General reminds the Transitional Military Council of its responsibility for the safety and security of the citizens of Sudan. The Secretary General urges the Sudanese authorities to facilitate an independent investigation into the deaths and to hold those responsible accountable. The Secretary General urges the parties to pursue peaceful dialogue and to stay the course in the negotiations over the transfer of power to a civilian-led transitional authority as required by the African Union.
To Egypt now, where the first court session for terror suspect Hesham Ashmawi since his capture and extradition to Egypt was held on Monday. After statements from the defense teams for Ashmawi and other terror suspects, the court adjourned till July the 2nd. As Hakim tells us what's in the charges against Ashmawi.
Monday's case is related to the Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis group. Hesham Ashmawi and 212 others are accused of establishing a terrorist organization, of killings and attempts to destabilize the country, as well as espionage for foreign entities such as Hamas.
Ashmawi did not attend the court session, but his lawyer Ali Ismail was present. The court listened to the defense arguments not just for Ashmawi, but for others on trial. It will continue listening to more arguments from defendants in the next session.
Egypt's most wanted man was extradited from Libya this week. His return opens the door for an opportunity for him to appeal the court cases and to defend himself.
The accused and his defense lawyers have the chance to deliver their point of view in both courts. He's tried in a crimes court for killing civilians and in the military court as well for killing soldiers and policemen.
The case has been adjourned to the 2nd of July. Now the court and the public opinion will be waiting to see if Hisham Ashmawi will be able to attend the court case and stand trial in the next session. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
The Tunisian president has urged all Arab leaders to work together on preserving the security and stability of the region. Tunisia also warned against the risk to be drawn into new episodes of tension and instability in the region. Adnan Chauchi reports.
Tunisian President Beji Qaid Sibsi called from Saudi Arabia for concerted efforts of all international and regional parties to counter the scourge of terrorism in the Arab region and prevent the creation of a conducive environment for its activities.
The
differences would not justify interference in the state's internal affairs or a behavior likely to undermine the region's stability, increase the level of tension in this region, and threaten international peace and security.
The head of state reiterated Tunisia's condemnation and refusal to target the cities and oil plants in Saudi Arabia with ballistic missiles and commercial vessels of the United Arab Emirates.
This represents an escalation that jeopardizes the region's security and a threat to the safety of international maritime transport and global trade. Tunisia is keen on preserving the security of the sisterly kingdom of Saudi Arabia and all Arab Gulf countries.
Analysts assert that the ongoing Gulf crisis has weakened the Arab League and the Gulf Cooperation Council.
The current tension will shift focus from urgent economic and security issues. The worst is yet to come if Arabs don't work together.
Tunisian authorities believe that the fragile conditions prevailing in the region require a joint thorough assessment of the challenges, sources and forms of danger, especially terrorism threatening the national Arab security.
Experts in Arab affairs maintain that all Arab states must focus on building common security strategies and economic projects, as well as putting forward the region's shared values, which bring their people together in a time of divisiveness. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
In a first for South Africa, drone technology may soon be used to transport critical blood supplies around the country. More than 1 million liters of blood is collected each year, but it is in short supply in rural areas. The country's blood service is now hoping to use drones which will deliver blood much quicker, especially in life-threatening situations. Here's CGTN's Julie Shire.
The Tron F9 is a specialised high-speed aircraft which will soon be used to deliver blood to remote areas in South Africa where stocks are often low.
It can take 4 units of blood, so that's about 1.8 liters. We actively cool that while we transport it from A to B, so we can perfectly make sure the blood gets there in the highest quality. It can take off vertically like a helicopter, not needing a runway or a catapult. And then once we are in fixed wing flight, we are very aerodynamic because we have the long wings. And that means we can go very far on very little energy.
The blood service says that at least 600 South African women die every year from excessive bleeding during childbirth, which can be avoided through blood transfusions.
It's all about those first few minutes that you're able to get that life-saving blood into someone's veins. The majority of it is used for medical conditions. These are children with leukemias, lymphomas. But the second largest or leading use of blood is in fact in obstetrics and gynecology. And this is where young women are giving birth, and often in outlying rural areas.
Childbirth already on its own is a difficult process, so we've come up with a solution where you don't have to die because of blood loss. But also it's fulfilling knowing that you can get to one point to another so fast and so quickly, and saving a person's life is absolutely amazing for me.
Once the blood has been delivered, the Tron returns with a sample from the patient for further testing.
We are not just taking O-negative or universal blood to a patient that needs it. We are able to take a blood sample from the patient and fly it back to the blood bank, land and send properly cross-matched blood back to that patient.
This little aircraft could be the difference between life and death for many South Africans, but it still needs the green light from aviation authorities to take to the skies. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And we'll stay in South Africa for the moment, where Cape Town's Winter Readiness Task Team has embarked on a flooding mitigation program in anticipation of a potentially higher than normal rainfall period. These winter downpours often occur in marginalized communities, causing distress to many. CGTN's Travers Andrews has this report.
With winter fast approaching, the city can expect to be blanketed with showers more often than not. And its Winter Readiness Task Team has got their hands full, making sure poor communities don't get washed away. They've been down in the trenches, making sure the increased flow of water doesn't cause any unnecessary harm.
In the past, traditionally, we would see many communities affected by periodic flooding, anything from a couple of feet of water to a few inches. But for people who are stuck in areas which are low-lying, which are perhaps in floodplains, that creates great misery and often a loss of assets which they can't readily replace.
But they're also specifically looking to tackle kilometre after kilometre of blocked canals, much of which are adjacent to informal dwellings and where illegal dumping has become a real problem.
Businesses, households, informal settlements are dumping waste into areas of canals and stormwater systems where they can gain access. That causes these canals to become dysfunctional.
Clothes, tires, couches, mattresses and the lot have been found inside the canals, which have diverted much needed funds for cleaning away from other services. Illegal dumping costs the city over $20 million a year. And while much of that is attributed to private businesses, who some say use the canal system as a dumping ground, communities have also fallen foul, which according to the city have also contributed to the blocked waterways.
In the informal settlement itself, we've got workers working from Monday to Thursday, and then we've got another team working from Friday to Sunday in all the informal settlements, doing door-to-door refuse collection and area cleaning within the informal settlements. So there is a service running in the settlements along the canals, yet people are dumped in the canals.
For now, the city says they remain hard at work clearing the mess. Their time is fast approaching when the heavens will open up and much needed rain will fall, even on communities where the idea isn't always as welcomed. Travers Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. When we return after the break, we'll go deeper into the rising cases of killings of women by men in Africa. And youth in Somalia persevere in the fishing industry despite its many challenges.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Cases of killings of women by men are on the rise across Africa. In Kenya, a group of female legislators has come together to start an initiative seeking to stop the killing of women. And as CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwana reports, addressing the causes of death still remains an issue.
A candle for every female life snuffed out in a case of domestic violence. Female members of parliament, security officials and members of civil society assembled at the University of Nairobi in Kenya's capital for a vigil. Today they would launch Her Life Matters, an initiative which comes against the backdrop of the killings of Kenyan women, mostly by domestic partners. Many of these have made headlines in recent months. Ivy Wangeshi was in her final year of medical school. She was scheduled to graduate in December, but that was not to be. On 9th of April, a young man who claimed Ivy rejected him reportedly attacked and hacked her on campus. Ivy died on the spot. She is one of dozens of women killed in Kenya in a recent spate of violence against women. A group called Counting Dead Women in Kenya estimates that since the beginning of the year, at least 54 women have been killed by men. Their families are searching for justice.
We do not want our women eliminated anymore. I'm an auntie to Ivy. It's unfortunate Ivy's mom would not join us. The family is still devastated.
While leaders and civil society seek to prevent further cases of femicide, both tasks have proved difficult as the causes of the deaths are unclear. Some chalk it up to growing frustration among youth as unemployment rises, together with inflation. Young men, it is also feared, are losing their place in society.
And the toxic masculinity that has crept in is destroying the very basis upon which we have built this society over a long time.
By the time we get to December, the numbers are going to be escalating. We want the President of Kenya to declare sexual violence and gender-based violence a national disaster.
In a bid to address the spate of killings, the government has stepped up its efforts to spread awareness and prosecute the suspects. It is a start, and those who gathered in the University Square for the vigil hope that by speaking out, they are helping to stop the killings. Wilkista Nyabwana, CGTN.
A disturbing trend indeed. That story there from Wilkista Nyabwana in Kenya. Let's get you more now on this. I'm joined from Johannesburg by Sarah Gon. Sarah is a fellow researcher at the South Africa Institute of Race Relations. Sarah, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Now, from where you stand, is it just increased media coverage or are cases of killings of women by men sharply on the rise?
I think media coverage is a significant factor, and it's tied to the extent to which women start to develop their legal and respect status in society. And I think one also, because one hears about it more, it appears to be a growing phenomenon. I'm not entirely sure. I do stand open to correction whether it is growing or whether it in fact is proportionately the same and we're just hearing more about it. But it's certainly very much as your insert describes. It's very prevalent in societies that are undergoing transition, and South Africa is very much like Kenya in that regard.
So we are hearing more about it now. So let me just get your opinion on this. What are some of the factors that are contributing to femicide?
Okay. Part of it is, as one of your commentators says, it is a sort of toxic masculinity. In other words, it's a prevalent attitude in society that men are the bosses. In some cases, even they have ownership of the women, and very often the issue of women gaining their strength and gaining their power, it becomes a cause of conflict between men and women. Unemployment, the difficulties of an environment, poverty, not exclusively, but are big factors in that lashing out. And it can obviously be exacerbated very often by alcohol when a man's inhibitions are just released completely. And I think in that respect, it becomes, we become much more aware of it. And as a result, I don't think it's something that, I think it's something governments have to become involved in, but I think some very practical measures have to be taken, two in particular. The one is for government and civic society to create shelters for women to escape to when they are in a relationship that threatens their lives, so that they have somewhere to go to. Education is obviously a huge one, because one of the very big problems is the fact that for a lot of more traditional societies, more religious societies, it's a matter of shame that these things happen, and so they are not talked about and they are not confronted. And I think the last thing is that a lot of the education has to happen, I think, at a high school level in early teenagehood, when you have an opportunity to change the attitudes of young boys and girls as to how they deal with these situations and how they respect one another. If you can get a change in attitude at that stage, you are likely to create a society full of men who are much more appreciative and realize that women are their equals, not their subordinates. If you go much later, it's probably a bit too late.
So education and sensitizing, young men and women at a rather early age is one of the issues you're recommending, as well as creating safe houses for women under distress. But in terms of the girls and the women themselves, what really can they do to stay safe, since it is often assumed it is very hard to predict when a man would attack and kill you?
Yeah, usually it's very seldom that a man would suddenly commit murder, a femicide, out of nowhere. There will usually be indications from his behavior during a relationship that things could go wrong. It could be belittling the woman, moving to slapping, moving to beating, etc. The difficulty is it's not simple for a woman to often leave a relationship. There are complex emotional issues. Sometimes there are money issues where a woman is dependent on a man, or family believes that the woman is obliged to adjust to whatever her husband or her partner requires of her, and so she feels incredibly trapped. And I think the role that government can play the most is for someone at leadership level, very high leadership level, president or prime minister, to actually take ownership, public ownership of the issue, and themselves and their ministries create an ongoing awareness. And in all those senses, it filters through society.
All right, Sarah Gun joining us there from Johannesburg on the sensitive issue of femicide. Thank you for your update. Let's now go to Somalia, where many of the country's youth are venturing into fishing. Despite having the longest coastline of mainland Africa, the Somali fishing industry is still lagging behind other nations on the continent. CGTN's correspondent Abdulaziz Bilo has more on the story.
Each morning, fishermen in the Somali capital pull in their catch, comprising of various types of fish, ready to feed a capital with a population of close to 3 million people. Hundreds of young men have ventured into this industry that has turned out to be a major source of employment, especially in coastal cities. Ismail Abdullahi owns a string of fish stores across the capital. He comes here every morning to inspect the catch of the day before purchasing hundreds of kilograms ready to be distributed in his stores in Mogadishu and beyond.
I purchase around 300 to 400 kilograms of fresh fish for my company every day. We have different outlets not far from the residential areas where locals come and buy fish. Many people prefer goat meat or camel meat, but we are seeing a lot of potential in this industry.
However, despite years of investment, mainly from donors, sea folks argue that the fishing industry hasn't improved as compared to neighboring countries. Fishermen argue that lack of right fishing gear has denied them a chance of venturing deep into the seas, resulting in small catch despite enormous risks.
Our capacity is still low and we cannot get a good catch due to lack of proper fishing gear as compared to fishermen in other countries. We used to get assistance from several Western countries like Sweden and Norway, but they stopped assisting us.
For now, private companies remain the main market for city fishermen. Lack of cold storage plants in the city has denied these fishermen a chance to make millions during bumper catches.
We earn a living by venturing into the high seas every day. Sometimes we get so much fish but lack proper storage facilities, and this in turn forces us to sell our catch at extremely low prices.
Surveys of Somali waters show that there are significant fish stocks off the coast of Somalia. These waters are in fact considered to be some of the richest fishing grounds in the region, but the fishing sector still lags behind for a country with one of the longest coastlines in the African continent. Meanwhile, traders say that demand for seafood during the fasting period of Ramadan and the Eid festivities has gone down, but they hope things will change soon.
The demand for fish has gone down drastically in the last months. 30 kilograms of fish used to trade for around $100, but we are forced to sell for as little as $20.
However, in a bid to boost the lucrative industry, Mogadishu has for the first time granted fishing licenses to at least 31 Chinese vessels to exploit tuna and tuna-like species off its coast for a period of 1 year, a move many say will allow Somalia to make huge revenues from its long coastline. Abdulaziz Bilon, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
The Angolan Chinese Women's Federation has been donating supplies to an orphanage in northern Angola. The charitable group is also helping to construct a new girls' dormitory. CGTN's Penina Karibe has the story.
El Betel Orphanage is located in the Angolan city of Viana. More than 130 children between the ages 6 to 12 live here. Conditions are cramped and sometimes 2 children must share a single bed.
This is our current female dormitory. The room is very small. In the evening, some children even sleep on these wooden pallets on the ground.
We have lived here for many years and feel that these children really need our help. So we come here from the heart to help these children. We are not only helping this orphanage, but also sponsoring other orphanages. We are helping them to build a new girls' dormitory. They used to rent a house, but in 3 months' time, they will have a new home to live in.
A new girls' dormitory is currently being built. The Angolan Chinese Women's Federation is helping with the construction costs.
The Angolan Chinese Women's Federation bought all the building materials for us. We're building a new girls' dormitory right now for 60 girls. The new dormitory has 4 bathrooms. The old dormitory only had 1. So now these girls will not argue or fight for the toilet anymore. They also have a living room, which they never had before. It's a good environment for the girls.
The Chinese Women's Group also donated daily necessities, including clothing, mattresses, school supplies and food. To celebrate, they even hired a bouncing castle for the children. Penina Karibe, CGTN.
Forget the normal deck of French playing cards. A Nigerian visual artist has invented playing cards featuring ancient kingdom personalities and classical artwork from the Kingdom of Benin. Osazi Amadasun hopes the Benin deck of playing cards will help more Nigerians interact with their history and culture. Here's CGTN's Noel Mwakugo with more details.
25-year-old Osaze Omadusan is working on what may be his crowning achievement at his workplace in Lagos. The drawing he's working on is of Oba Esije, a king who is known for his contribution to the emergence of bronze casting in the Kingdom of Benin. British soldiers seized thousands of Benin's bronzes in 1897, one of a series of acts of plunder that have long tainted relations between London and the territories where the agents held sway in the 19th century. Osaze believes that there are other ways Nigerians to interact with their history, while appeals continue for the looted artifacts to be returned.
We've heard about the oral traditions, stories. We know about the Benin bronzes. What other medium can we pass across the message and still push this tradition, keeping in line with the values and the stories that were told, that we know?
Osaze, an architect, says he became fascinated with Benin's history and mythology while working on an academic project that required the design of an Oba Esije theme park. He soon began using 3D software to replicate Benin artifacts as a hobby, and that led to the idea of putting Benin's historical figures on playing cards.
The deck of cards is similar to what you have in the French deck. So the king basically is the Oba of Benin by design for the deck of cards. The queen is the queen mother, that's Queen Idia from the famous Festac 77 mask. And the Jack is the Iyase of Benin, as back then he was the general commander of the Benin army.
He holds court regularly to get feedback from his contemporaries.
All of the illustrations are illustrations of Obas and then other symbolic figures in Benin art and Benin culture. It's incredibly detailed for a first set. Like, there are like illustrations on the back, on the flaps. Like, you don't see like details on flaps of like playing cards.
A deck of Benin playing cards is sold for $14 US. Osaze has sold 60 packs since he started promoting them in April. He says he regularly gets expatriates as customers who are very excited about the piece of work. Osaze hopes to promote Benin history more through his Benin deck cards. Noel Mokugu, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. Zambia begins rationing electricity as water levels at the Kariba Dam run low. And Egypt resumes privatization of state corporations.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Zambia has started rationing electricity to businesses that are not involved in mining. The country began rationing power on Saturday to address a daily electricity deficit of 273 megawatts. The move is expected to hurt industrial production and commercial services. ZESCO spokesman Henry Kopata says that all customers shall be subjected to power cuts for 4 hours daily, but the power utility has agreements with mining companies. Zambia is Africa's second largest copper producer. Copper accounts for 70% of the country's total export earnings and 12.2% of its gross domestic product. But the mining industry sources told Reuters that electricity rationing had not affected the sector but was likely to if the situation worsened. The Egyptian government is resuming its privatization plan. It has just announced that it will be offering state-owned Abu Kiz fertilizers before the end of June. Yasser Hakim reports.
The deal has come as a surprise to many experts here, as the government has previously postponed any privatization steps until the third or fourth quarter of 2019. However, the government says it plans to sell about 20% of state-owned Abu Qir fertilizers in the stock market. The deal could bring in about $500 million to the government. This IPO should revitalize the Egyptian stock exchange, which has seen a sharp drop during the month of Ramadan. It will also support the market during the usually slow summer. The sale will not go ahead until it's approved by the state-affiliated companies that own Abu Qir fertilizers. The privatization program has started in April, with the sale of a 4.5% stake in Eastern Tobacco. The government announced it will resume privatization by the end of the year. Experts say if the Abu Qir fertilizer sales is a success, it will open the appetite of the government to release more companies in the market earlier than anticipated. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
The global gaming industry is already valued at over $135 billion, and Kenyan gaming events companies boosted by broadband are hoping to become major players in the global arena. CGTN's Terry Wangari has more.
An increasing number of Kenyans have decided to hone their gaming skills with an aim to build a professional career. Gaming is one of the world's favorite form of entertainment and has even grown to become a spectator sport. At a nightclub in Nairobi, players recently had a chance to battle it out in the Kenya National League of the Africa eSports Championships. eSports is the competitive side of electronic gaming, with multiple players battling against each other, usually in teams, often in matches that are streamed live to thousands of young fans.
Watching other people play has become big business and has given rise to games being played in tournaments that offer handsome amounts of prize money.
If you look at countries like those in the West and in Asia, esports has become a full-time occupation where you have dedicated athletes who compete in games. So I can list some of them off, like League of Legends has a dedicated league, Overwatch in multiple continents, whereby the players are paid a stipend and they also earn money from endorsements that they receive from sponsors and corporate investors. And this has now changed the landscape of the sport, where people are taking it now more seriously, like an actual sport.
Kenya is gearing up to host the inaugural Africa Esports Championship later this year. The event is hoping to highlight Kenya as a potential market for investment in gaming.
For Kenya to host the inaugural championship is very exciting for us. I think it's a big statement to how Kenya has been a powerhouse and a shaker and a mover when it comes to leading the rest of the continent in internet penetration, technology, incubations and hubs, and innovation.
Sylvia Wahome, also known as Queen Arrow in gaming circles, is Kenya's first female professional gamer and is currently signed up with a US-based eSports Exit Wounds team. She is among many Kenyan youth who will take part in East Africa's first gaming tournament.
I see myself becoming one of the most recognized esports athletes, and not just because of my gender, because of my skill. Because I'm taking the slow and gradual steps to improving my gameplay.
Well, yes, with the growth of the industry, especially at the numbers that the industry is growing in the international market, I believe that esports will be a career option very soon in Kenya.
Several African countries are well positioned to benefit from gaming because of their youthful population and broadband access. Talent managers are also seizing the opportunity to nurture professional gamers.
We know there's quite a number of talented players already, and so as the sessions grow, as the competitions expand, we feel that we're going to capture quite a number of talented players that will enable Kenya to compete against the best in the world.
Esports already boasts an estimated 250 million players worldwide in a growing market worth about $1 billion. Revenues are expected to hit $1.1 billion in 2019, up 27% since last year. The International Olympic Committee recognized esports in 2017 as a sports activity, but the IOC maintains that the structure of esports and its focus on commercialization currently hampers immediate hopes of inclusion in the games. Regardless, the gaming industry is booming in Africa, and with its current growth rate, the gaming industry is well on its way to being included in the global gaming scene. Terry Wangari, CGTN.
South Africa is still grappling with serious problems of crime and violence, but one tech startup in the country is hoping to change all that. Mechatronics engineer Natsako Mugiba has come up with alarm systems which provide vulnerable communities terrorized by crime with low cost and innovative security solutions. CGTN's Julie Shire has the details.
Mechatronics engineer Natsako Mugiba created an affordable security device after his aunt was robbed in her township home. Jonga, which means to watch, is a simple alarm system which alerts friends or family if someone is in danger.
It's a wireless battery-powered motion sensor that you install inside the house, and then it connects to our Jonga app. Whoever you have in your local community who can respond to you in your time of need, you add those onto the app, and then they get the notification as soon as you're in trouble. And then they become the early response system that you so desperately need.
Crime in townships is a lot worse than in affluent suburbs. As you can see, there is very little protection around these homes, but this device could help keep people safer.
People think that crime is bad in the suburban areas, but in the suburban areas there's so many resources that police have which enable them to respond on time, whereas in the township that's not the case.
Jonga has been tested in Kalicha Township in Cape Town and will soon be rolled out nationally. Mugiba is also eyeing other African and emerging markets.
We've seen a lot of interest in Kenya. We've gotten a lot of interest in Nigeria as well. These are all markets that have a strong sense of community, but there's also an increase in the crime. and just home burglaries. So that makes for a really great market for us.
South Africa spends around $7 billion on police services every year, but it does not deter criminals. It's hoped crime will start to drop by strengthening communities. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Apple is holding its annual developer conference to inspire software developers to continue creating products for its ecosystem. CGTN's Mark New reports that Apple unveiled some powerful products while emphasizing its commitment to keeping data safe.
At Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, the tech giant unveiled what it calls its most powerful computer ever, the new Mac Audio, and 3 streams of 8K resolution video at the same time.
Never been seen before on any video editing software on any computer.
Power comes at a steep price, $6,000 for the base model. And if you want to pair it with Apple's new 6K Retina display, the Pro Display XDR, that'll cost you $5,000 more.
This is a very small segment of the market. It's not going to drive a lot of revenue for Apple. It's a very, very small pro area, but it's important because it shows that their technology leadership will transfer into some of the other areas.
The pricey but powerful products come as Apple faces some declining public interest in its annual Worldwide Developers Conference. Google searches on WWDC peaked about 6 to 7 years ago. Those numbers have now dropped to levels comparable to before the iPhone even existed. One area Apple continues to take the lead on is privacy. The company introduced updates to its Apple Watch and OS 6, including apps that monitor your fitness trends and even fertility windows. But Apple stressed it does not record or save your audio.
We believe privacy is a fundamental human right, and we engineer it into everything we do.
The mobile operating system update iOS 13 features an option to use Face ID to sign in to third-party apps without revealing personal information. It even allows users to log in with a hidden email address, whereby Apple creates a unique random address that forwards mail to your real address.
We give each app a unique random address, and this means you can disable any one of them at any time when you're tired of hearing from that app.
It doesn't reveal your email. It doesn't reveal your name. It's an encrypted relay network, and you also saw that in a lot of areas where it's all about protecting your data. Even in Maps, the data goes to yourself. Even in Siri, the data goes to yourself on the local device, not onto the network.
Apple also revealed its long-standing iTunes has been broken up into 3 apps: podcasts, TV, and music. And its new updated mobile operating system now offers the popular dark mode, which provides a trendy look, though claims of reducing eye strain are still heavily debated. Mark New, CGTN, Mountain View, California.
And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. Breaking the fast. Groups in Senegal prepare and share meals with the needy during Ramadan.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Now, during Ramadan, Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset. As believers break their fast, groups in Senegal prepare bread as well as hot drinks to hand out to those in need. CGTN's Ashta Tal followed a group in the capital, Dakar, helping out their community.
Before the sun sets, members of the Jeunes de Rem get to work. They're preparing bread and tea for passerbys and cars. The group came together before the start of the holy Muslim month of Ramadan. They wanted to create a way to give back to those in need.
Since the first day of Ramadan till now, we are giving to those in need for the breaking of the fast. We are providing the bread and tea.
During the month of Ramadan, able Muslims are obligated to fast from sunrise to sunset. They are also encouraged to give to charity as well as their communities.
You know, the month of Ramadan is one of sharing and forgiveness. It's important for Muslims to engage in this. Share what they have with the most poor. Give to people so that they don't need to go look for food. So show what we have and sharing joyfully with others. That's what's important.
The Jeunes de Rem started by using funds gathered from members of the group. They then started reaching out to the neighborhood for help.
We wrote letters asking for support and gave them to figures of authority in this neighborhood. They all gave what they could, and we thanked them for their contribution.
The loaves of bread and piping hot tea are passed out to anyone who comes by. Drivers stuck on the road as the sun sets also don't have to fret about not being able to break their fast.
What they're doing here is good. Those who don't have the means to break the fast can come here. They can get a piece of bread, some coffee or tea.
As Ramadan comes to an end, the spirit of giving continues here. Asatal for CGTN in Dakar, Senegal.
And in Egypt, measuring just over 3,000 meters, Egypt's Ramadan feast table has set the world record for the longest food table at a Ramadan meal. Nearly 7,000 people attended the event, which was held at Egypt's new administrative capital on Saturday in the desert east of Cairo. Let's get more details of this record-breaking table from Adil Mahroui.
Ramadan's spirit has inspired officials of the new administrative capital to set up this table. This new city aims to be an outstanding African city in all aspects. It's why Egypt decided to bring thousands here to participate in the biggest iftar meal in the world.
We were looking through the Guinness World Book of Records, the book, and we saw that Ajman had done it last year. We decided that we'd do it this year, simply to try and show people that we want to get the Egyptians together and to showcase all the great things that are happening here in the new capital city. So we went to the capital city and we told them a great way to showcase the developers and the things that we're doing here in the new capital city is during Ramadan is to bring the people together and do a really big iftar for everybody.
The target was to break UAE's Ajman city's record for the longest table, which was 2,983.6 meters long. Around 7,000 people joined this world record attempt, all excited to become part of registering a new achievement for their country.
People need to feel that when they come together, great things can happen. It's why all of us showed up so that, together, we could break a new world record. The new capital is a new start for a new life that is designed to become a capital for Egyptians.
It's incredible to see how the new capital is shaping up, that it's capable of hosting thousands now, to have dinner and even stay for entertainment. There are now buildings everywhere, and very soon life will come to this desert. It truly is amazing.
It took organizers about 4 weeks to prepare for this iftar, and with a table more than 3,189 meters long, the new capital has entered the Guinness World Book of Records. The 714 square kilometer city plans to have the highest building in Africa. It also aims to become the first green capital in the continent. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Let's take a quick look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. Caster Semenya gets a temporary relief after a Swiss court suspends IAAF gender rules.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born.